Fight!
Hey everybody, welcome back to Kick Punch once again for the second video in our series for Primal Characters series. Very excited to have you here again, and this is kind of where we got to in the last video. In this video, we're going to do a little bit of refining on our dinosaur character, our T-Rex, and then we're going to move right into our caveman. So we'll start here on the head, and be sure to, if you haven't, like, comment, and subscribe, and ring the bell, and get involved in those comments as usual. So I'm just going to continue to push the proportions on the head just a little bit more, just to make those a little bit more appealing. Something that I am kind of missing from the concept. A little bit more extreme. I tend to be more conservative in my proportions. A very distinct kind of zigzag shape here. And I think while I'm at it, I'm just going to use my move topological. I'm going to grab this. If I hit Shift F, you'll see these are different colors, those are different polygroups. And that's how the move topological brush is going to work. So we're going to grab the blue and push it down into the green because I want these to merge together. So from here, you'll notice that even though I move that down underneath, I can still move it and not manipulate the green polygroup below. But if I hit Control W and then rerun a Dynamesh by Control left clicking and dragging, you'll see that now that's been shrink wrapped together. There's no longer controlling that separately, which is what I'm going for. So which is all good. So I'm gonna use the Damien standard to kind of do some weird things when you get up close to neighboring geometry. Damien standard is a pretty rad brush, also known as the Dam standard. Ideally, especially if you're making this character for rigging, you want to be able to actually get this mouth to close. So that might be something we'll have to test here. And in fact, you know what I think what I'm going to do is undo everything I just did and leave those in a separate polygroup, a separate geo. You could actually come up here too and just you can drag the slider up here too, and that'll just go through your history right away. And we'll keep those separate for now, and then I'm just gonna Control Shift left click on this guy, mask this bottom jaw, and then rotate that up and see how it fits. So just assuming that we know kind of where this thing pivots from, it's obviously gonna be way far off, it's obviously way too small. So let's just get it into place while the top jaw is still masked. We'll just continue to manipulate this green one and try to get it looking as though it could possibly work. You can always Control left click to invert your selection, and then you have control over the upper jaw. You can see the benefit of using polygroups and masking to keep things connected but also separate in a weird way. So yeah, I think that'll work for now. So let's invert our selection, and then our transpose tool has maintained its orientation, so we'll just come over here and now we'll rotate that guy. I'm actually going to push it quite a bit because in the concept it's very, very open, which I love. In the show you'll find that too, that the level of openness on the mouse is so awesome. It's so extreme and cool that's something I wanted to achieve. So I'm going to Control Shift left click on this guy, get the other one to hide. There we go. Now I can get access to that. Yeah. Okay. And from here, I'm just going to hit Control W and then re-Dynamesh everything back together. Connect it, so now we have those connected like we want. And we'll continue to just kind of modify the shape of the head just a little. So I'm using H polish and actually holding Alt to bring things out to me as opposed to pushing in. I love running over the surface with H polish. I think it just adds some very interesting kind of carved feel to my models. Okay, so now our teeth are going to be out of place, so we'll have to mask those bottom teeth and push those back into place using our transform gizmo, which should still maintain its position, which is awesome. And then we'll grab these little flaps of skin here too and stretch those a little bit more. Very nice. Just make sure that these are inflated out, that they have a good amount of thickness for 3D printing purposes. You want everything to have thickness, nothing can be paper thin. And then let's make sure that that comes outside of the neck area. Looking pretty mean straight on, which is exactly what we want. And the top of the head is, I'm kind of what I'm going for is like a rattlesnake or like a viper type shape. They have kind of this diamond kind of triangular kind of shape to their heads, and I think that looks pretty sweet. So go for that. And very cool. Okay. So that's probably only, we're always going to continue to refine as we go along, but for now I think I'm going to move on to the body area, and we'll just try to introduce some like kind of folds and things right here. Maybe adjust the shape just a little bit too. This is where he's going to be sitting, so spikes aren't going to work so well there. Let's assume we know our dinosaur anatomy and put some shoulder blades in there. I think these big long things that kind of come out back towards the back of the spine. Be sure to scale your brush size up too and just adjust larger forms as opposed to just adding little wrinkle details and things. Remember, a bunch of ligaments and tendons and muscle runs the length of these things. Alright, cool. And I think, in fact, I'm going to leave the legs separate for a good amount of time, just because we have to get this character into pose. And I think it's going to be easier just to have these separately. Okay, now let's add a little bit of muscle structure here. So if it's anything like human muscle, they have this guy that comes up right here. Lots of V shapes in muscle anatomy. And I mean, the jury's out on how much I want to really push the detailing on this, because if it's implied to be like a fan art situation, then you might want to keep shapes a little bit more simple. You know, maybe we don't want to dive into doing scales and real crazy intricate detailing on these guys. Maybe the pose is what's most important. And in the end, it'll probably be just a combination of those things. Scaling my draw size up on those feet, and then we're going to give those a good amount of mass. Right now they just don't look like they could hold this entire thing up. So, it's looking a little bit better. Alright, that's good enough for now. I think it's time to move on to our caveman character. Let's hit save. And then I will, if you'd like to, you can organize all of these subtools into folders. We could call this T-Rex. And then you can just drag these up into those folders. Sometimes I find that it's more confusing than not when you have a ton of subtools to work with, but for now we'll give it a shot. And then from here I'm going to just do, I'll append a sphere. And in fact, I'm going to undo that and append a cube. And the reason being because our caveman character is a very cube-shaped character. If you take a look, his predominant shapes are definitely more square. So let's see if that helps us along a little bit. So if this was the head, we're not worried about scale or position or anything at this point. Come to deform and then taper Y, and then we'll just taper the head in just a little bit. And then from there, we'll do our same fun duplicate and rotate for our body. His head is actually pretty tiny in relation to his body. He's got caveman vibe. So symmetry turned on. Actually, I'm going to scale this entire character down a good amount so we get him in roughly similar appropriate scale. And then turning symmetry on, and then just kind of giving him a little bit of a hunch, because that's the pose we're gonna be in. So I'm not gonna model this character in an actual T pose. I'm not gonna go with the impression that we're gonna rig this guy. This is just purely gonna be for like portfolio kind of pieces. And oops, what am I doing here? Curve tube. We use the curve tube to kind of just draw in the neck, and you'll notice that it's in the wrong position, so we'll just scoot those into the center and then rerun our Dynamesh. And now we have upper resolution just a little, and now we have roughly a pretty good torso head shape thing going on. Let's give him some traps. He basically doesn't have a neck because he's a caveman, so that's good. And then from here, let's go ahead and add, I guess we'll continue to use the curved tube and just draw out some arms. See, those are probably, I was gonna say they were too big, but it's probably exactly the size they need to be for this guy. And then, actually, I'm gonna draw his legs in a bent pose, because that's what we're gonna end up with. So I know, it looks super goofy. It's fine, just be patient. So much of art is just being patient with yourself, like realizing you're at an early stage. There's not a lot of patience for that these days. Everyone wants it to be finished and final right away. You'll find that as a freelancer too. So just gonna re-Dynamesh, connect everything together, And now we've got a pretty good start here. Just gonna try to square things up a little bit using my H polish. Let's get the arms up and, well, yeah, let's do that. We'll get the arms out of the way just a little bit. So the way I'm gonna do that is I'm gonna Control Shift, left click, tap, and send them to the invisible layer, and then invert my selection by Control left clicking and dragging. And then from here, I'm just gonna use my mask brush and just mask these guys out so the arms themselves are masked alone. And then from here, I'm gonna invert my selection and then click on Rotate, bring up my transform gizmo and position it in like the armpit shoulder area, and then kind of rotate those guys up and out of the way just a little bit. That was a long way of getting there, but I kind of wanted to show you how that process works. And then we got to continue to add a good chunk of mass to this guy because he's like just a big solid brick of muscle. Continue to add that mass. Just remember the reason I'm doing this is because he's riding a dinosaur like he's riding a horse kind of a pose. And he's got very stubby feet. I noticed this. Crank our resolution to 2 something. I mean, there's ways to start with, you can always come over here to Lightbox Tools, and you can start with these different male, humanoid type characters, and there's other models over here that you can start with. You can start with the male, but I wanted to show you guys how to start without that stuff. So if you wanted to just start from pure scratch, I mean, the teaching strategy is intentional, just FYI. I wanted to show you that you can pull in a sphere and then turn that sphere into a blob that looks kind of like a crouching man. Let's continue to do some work on his head here because it's currently just a cube, and we want it to be not that. Go ahead and use the Damien standard, and we'll pull out like a kind of a jawline. And then cut that down into his neck area. Definitely want him to be very brutish. Using the clay buildup, I'm going to push in the mouth area, mouth bag. You could actually just go in, up your resolution a little bit, re-dynamesh. You could go in here and just like actually using the mask pen, you could just mask in that area too if you like, and then control, invert that selection. You can use Control Shift clip curve, and you can just come back way back here and run a clip, and it'll push that thing way back in space. Get that thing out. Get that mouth bag out of the way for you. You can add this little guy, this little thing. I can never remember the name of. And then we'll keep pushing these details. We'll come up here and grab them. Give this guy a nose. Give him a nice intense eyebrow area on account of he's a caveman. Using the snake hook, just pull out some little dinky ears. And then running this mouth wrinkle down to the corner of the mouth. Oops. Be sure to rerun your Dynamesh things as you go along if you're not in Sculptor's Pro mode. A little bit of a cheekbone area. Very nice. A little bit of a collarbone area, and give this guy some mean looking pecs. Be sure to square those up. Our resolution a little, give us some more polys. Make sure that we're saving because it's been a while. I'm going to version up my file here to version 4. I prefer to use only ZTL strictly when saving. I find that they get corruptible a lot less than ZProj, in case you were wondering. A little bit at the nose, some nostrils, that is. And then I think I'm going to do the same approach here and just mask out an area for the eye, hit accept. Whoa, way too large, way too large. So we'll hit delete on that one. And then I'll take us back and then we'll drop our thickness to 0.002, hit accept. And they look super funky, but we'll just re-Dynamesh those. And then smooth them out and they'll become spherical. Got a dinosaur in our way, so we'll just turn off the visibility on that folder, get that out of the way. We got some eyes here. Okay. So we pinch that forehead together up there. Be sure to have your reference up to find some sketches of the cartoon or the series, or I find on Pinterest is my favorite place to go for concept art. You can find people who have done fan art and things like that. That always helps too. So just refining these shapes using the Damien standard and the H polish to kind of push down the peaks and reshape things. You can crank that intensity to 100. Easy enough, and that'll help out too. So we've got like a decent little mouth fold kind of going on right there. So we have a good amount of hair, so we might hold off on detailing the back of the head. Oops, Damien Standard is what I wanted there. Okay. In solo mode. Very cool. Yeah, that was like a meter. Going to hold control with the mask pen and just mask his eyebrow area out, and then do a quick extract to bring those to life. So extract and accept. Now he's got some awesome eyebrows. Going to deform and then do an inflate, and we'll re-dynamesh those guys. Kind of get those eyebrows into shape. But he probably has like a unibrow too going. Always be sure to like zoom out and take a look at like how things are looking from far back. I think that's always helpful. I've been pushed into this guy so much. Look how goofy this thing's looking so far. Very goofy. It'll look cool though. We'll get it there. Some more shoulders. Lower back. And then I think I have, okay. Well, it looks like, I was gonna say I thought I had him in two fists, but he's got an open hand. So we'll model the hand open, and then we can always close that. Just use the snake hook brush to pull out some fingers from here. And re-dynamesh. We're getting pretty high poly, so it's gonna take a little bit longer to re-dynamesh things. You'll find. I like the square tips on the ends of the fingers. I think that's a staple of the design. And then obviously there are super wacky shapes, so we'll just have to do like a quick inflate. Again, I'm just trying to maintain for sure the squareness on the tips of those fingers. And then I'm going to use my, let's see which one, clay build-up brush to sculpt in some knuckle detail. And I may have fallen victim to the classic 3D gotcha where I haven't been rotating around enough, so our fingers are going to be kind of flat. Not terrible, but pretty flat looking. We want those to have a good amount of thickness. So I'm going to use my mask lasso brush and kind of slice those down the side there, right in half. Blur my mask a little bit by control left clicking and dragging, and then invert by control left click tapping. And then I'm going to use my if you click between this guy, you click on and off, you can see that it switches between two different, the legacy transpose gizmo and the new transform gizmo. Sometimes this is just a better, there's different uses for each one, but sometimes I like the old one better. I find that it's just sometimes more capable. So, and we're just going to rerun a Dynamesh again on that. I'm going to drop my resolution just a smidge to like 6 something. It's going to make things update a little bit more quickly. The inside of the hand is looking real wonky. So let's use our Damien Standard and try and clean that up. Actually, let's give him some more mass to the palm area with the clay build-up brush. And smooth things back. I wouldn't worry about things looking too chunky, because if you look at your reference on this guy, he is just absolute thick, solid, square. I don't think you can make this guy too big, honestly. Alright, looks like our man has a hand. Pretty basic, but let's do one last adjustment. We'll just carve these details in the finger wrinkle area. And then the thumb actually does need some thickness to match that of the other digits. So we'll just do an inflate on this guy, I think. And then pull that tip of that thumb up and out. We're definitely going to continue to refine the hand. The hands are something that are very, very important. And they take so much practice. You just got to be patient with yourself and definitely look at reference. Always be looking at reference. And anyway, I think that's looking pretty good for now. Let's flatten down the top of the hand a little bit more. Just a little bit of a wrist area. Okay. Go hit save real quick. And then save next to version up our file. It's not uncommon in the film biz to get into the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of versions, so don't be ashamed as long as you have the hard drive space to just version up as much as you can. You're never sure when a client's going to want you to go back. They liked the details that you had before. You got to go back to that, so always be version up. That's just a way to save and secure your state of your character, your prop, or whatever it was. Something that I see is frequently forgotten about, just the simple act of adding another number. Alright, okay, I'm going to stop nitpicking the hands. They're looking pretty good for now. His face looks so crazy. He needs teeth for sure. And his shape of his face needs a little bit of love. Certainly teeth are going to help. I think teeth always help people to look a little bit more normal. You know, and you get like your grandma and her dentures are out, and you can't unsee that. So let's give this guy some mouth details. Start with the tongue. Oops. Make sure that our mask pen is the masking tool. And you guessed it, we'll do a mask here, and then we'll come over to subtool extract and run an extract. Hit accept, and then we'll inflate that out a good amount. Whoops, too much. Way too much. And then redynamesh that guy. And remember, if you let go of shift while you're shift smoothing, it'll do a different algorithm. We'll just inflate this tongue out now. Add a little, carve a little slit down the center of it. Give it some detail. Just pushing that guy up and out, I guess. Yeah, this guy looks awesome. It's a good screaming baby. Again, I'm just using H-polish and just holding Alt to pop things out. Sometimes it just adds some really interesting line work to things too that you didn't see. It's fun to experiment with. And in the end, your 3D print looks like it's got a handcrafted feel, you know, you got these sort of little subtle imperfections. I personally think they're kind of cool. They don't look too CG, as they say. They look like they have a handcrafted, kind of handmade feel. Alright, so now let's go in here and hit save, and then we'll do a quick mesh extract again on the upper side of the teeth. Get kind of a C shape here. And then we'll do a subtool, extract, accept. And you'll notice that when you do that, it actually gives you these two separate poly groups here, or three of them actually. You can Control-Shift left click on that bottom poly group and then mask that out. And then invert that selection, so now, oops. Invert the selection. So now that the bottom is unmasked, it's kind of hard to see. But if you want to get your transform gizmo in place too, to be able to control this and kind of pull this down and give those teeth some length, you can hold Alt or Shift and then left click tap. Oops, let's make sure that our legacy or other transform gizmo is active. So shift, left click, tap, and it's going to pull your transform gizmo in the direction of the normal from that geometry, from that polygon. So now it's going the right direction, and all you have to do is click on move and grab the inner white circle here, and then pull that guy down like that, and now you have some teeth. So we'll go ahead and just unmask this guy and then run a Dynamesh. Oops, too low res. Let's crank it just a little bit more, maybe a little bit more, 7 something. You'll notice that Dynamesh is contingent on the actual scale of whatever your model is. So just keep that in mind as you're working, that if it's going to be really, really large, you're going to want to scale this number down. If it's really, really small, you're going to want this number to be higher. It's something that I've learned painstakingly over the years and years and years I've used ZBrush. I'm going to give that guy a little chip in his tooth, because why not? Because he's a friggin' caveman. He probably chipped it on a bone of an ox or something, or a rock that he was eating, you know. Alright, awesome. And okay, one thing that I like to do, a workflow that I like, is maybe I don't want that symmetry because I want to duplicate this and make it the bottom. And one way that you can do that is you can just click duplicate, and you'll notice that when you do that, it does not keep your undo history on the duplicate file. However, it does keep it on the old file. So now I can just scale back on this and get rid of that little slash that I made in the teeth. And now we're back to our normal shape, our default shape. So from here, I can now use this as my bottom teeth, and it's not going to have that same. Just click OK, that's fine. And so that's one way I like to retain my history and keep my shapes, but also just duplicate that and make that into my other shape, if that makes any sense. Makes sense in my brain, but lots of things that make sense in my brain don't make sense in other people's brains. I think we're out of symmetry, so we'll just quickly do a modify mirror and weld just to make sure that our symmetry is back in place. And then rerun a Dynamesh. So I've got our bottom teeth, and we want his mouth to be more open than that. One thing you can do too in this situation, let's say we want to have like separate teeth come out of this guy. If you hit Shift F, you'll see the different polygroups there. If we hit Control W, it'll just make everything in that polygroup, everything in that Geo one polygroup. And if we want to make these all separate, what we can do is hit Control Shift and come over here to, oops, again, over to our slice curve, and we can come over and hold Control Shift and then start slicing the shapes of these teeth in here like this, and then we can come over to modify it, because that doesn't work with symmetry. This brush doesn't work with, or this tool does not work with symmetry. So because it doesn't, we'll just do a mirror and weld, and then we'll get all our separate groups here. And then for this guy, we'll just come in, turn off symmetry, and then run another slice here to get that to be a different color. So now we have these different colors, and if we go into Dynamesh and turn on groups, now rerun a Dynamesh, you'll notice that it actually kept those same colors in their own chunk. And from here, we can turn on our symmetry and just start smoothing, and then just watch those teeth kind of appear for us. And so that's just if you wanted to add some separated looking teeth, which I think look a little bit better. They look like you put a little more effort into it. Yeah, I think that definitely looks a lot better. So let's do the same thing here to these guys. Just gonna hit Control W and then Control Shift. Make sure that's the slice curve as your selected brush, and then just drag these guys out like so, and you can just go all the way around. I'm staying out of symmetry for all of this, just so it makes sense. Make sure groups is turned on, and then run your reDynamesh, and then you are off to the races, man. So just make these teeth a little bit bigger. It's like they come back and they become molars, you know. And sweet. So this is nice too because you can use your move topological brush, and these are now going to move. They're going to move separately for you, so you can add a little bit more of a groove there. And turn off solo. Okay, let's get these teeth all into the same subtool. Just combine those all together. We'll just do a merge down, and now all of our teeth are in the same subtool. And let's make some of these a little bit more imperfect. And very nice. Very nice. Okay, cool. Let's hit save. And we need to definitely refine this leg area. Getting close on time, so I'm going to try to keep this real quick. Again, just using clay buildup to bring out our muscle mass. The thing about the dotted or the Damien standard is this interesting little stepping that occurs. Sometimes I find that going over to stroke and lazy mouse, turning down this lazy step, helps to fix that, and also just not swiping so quickly, just trying to be patient, which is real hard for me, as you can probably tell. I like to work fast. But Damien standard to me is king when doing this kind of detailing. It's 100% the bread and butter of at least the inset detail work that we're doing. So let's come in here and let's give him maybe some abs. And then again with the Damien standard, and then smoothing back. It's funny how just doing a simple smooth can help so much. Some ribs. And I'm scaling out my Damien standard brush a good amount to get some larger detailing, some larger form adjustments. Square is the key to this guy's design, I feel like, so let's try and keep things as square as possible, but also adding some interesting muscle detail. We don't want to do the exact concept, you know, of what's been drawn in the show. We kind of want to make this thing our own. I think that's always key when you're doing fan art of this kind. So let's go ahead and add some giant big old shoulders here using clay buildup. Just ridiculously large, I think. Make sure that actually, you know what, I'm having a hard time because our poly count's so high, so let's go over to Lightbox Tools, Brush, and then come over to Smooth and Smooth Stronger, and make that your new default smooth brush, and you'll notice a drastic improvement of, you know, the actual smoothing ability. So take that for what it's worth. And then Damien standard to carve in the bicep. I want this to look like a big tube, but also to have detail. So it's a little bit tricky to try and achieve that. It's also fun. It's a nice little challenge. We want them to have like biceps and want them to have, you know, forearm detailing and stuff, but we also want it to look like a big chunky just cylinder as well. So Very cool. This guy's come a long ways if you look back to where we were at. One thing I failed to mention miserably is that if you would like to use the same concept, I'll have that in a drive link in the description below. So you can just download the concept and just make it yourself based off this concept. Oh, I feel like this is going to be my battle, this chin. Yeah, this is going to be my battle. Okay. Our neck mass. Some traps here, or yes, traps. That is the word. And pull down that elbow, or yeah, elbow joint. Everything sounds weird to me today. You ever have days where everything just doesn't sound right when you say it? It sounds, you feel like you're not speaking your first language or something. It happens to me almost every day. So the traps is kind of a tricky pose to model in. Typically you'd have these out by the side. Continue to model the traps in the back. These are going to be on display and brandished in this piece, so we got to do a good job on the back anatomy as best we can. A little bit of a V shape here. You'll notice that as you look at reference, it's a lot of V shapes in the anatomy. And if it seems like I'm doing this so quickly, it's because I've done it for years and years and years and years. So don't get discouraged. If you're having a hard time getting the shapes that I'm getting, I've used ZBrush for a lot of years. And so I'm very, very familiar with how brushes are going to behave and react to this or that. So just be patient with yourself as you're learning these things. I'll try to do my best to instruct it and talk about things as I go, but I'm kind of new to this still. Anyway, alright, very cool. It's a tricky character because I want everything to be very blocky and square. So we're gonna have to definitely, we'll keep playing with this as we go. Get some mass in this direction. There we go. And then the last thing we're gonna add before we wrap it up is we'll give him some toes. And for that, I'll just use my curved tube brush. Too big. Get that into place here, and then maybe just actually try and manipulate that to be a little bit better of a shape. It's tricky because it's so low poly. And then we'll just use the move tool and just control left click, and get that guy into place. I'm always freaking out because I feel like, oh, there's no way I can fit 5 toes on that thing. It doesn't, that looks so natural. 4 toes, why does that look so natural? And then you put the 5th one, you're like, that looks ridiculous. But all we're going to do is you go ahead and grab our Move Top Logical and then adjust the foot shape, which can be a little bit tricky to grab the right thing, and just make that wider like so. And like I said, his concept is such, or the way it's drawn in the cartoon, he barely has any volume to his foot size. It's like almost his toes just kind of stick right out of his tree trunk leg. So I think that's cool. That's part of the coolness of it. So we're gonna try to keep it real. I switched up my hotkeys recently, so if you notice that my brushes are doing weird things and then I'm undoing a lot, it's because my brain is trying to wrap its head around. My brain's trying to wrap its head around the new setup for my hotkeys. So anyway, the old brain wrapping his head around stuff. All right, snake hook. You notice these guys got connected, so I'm gonna use snake hook to just push that guy back. And then re-dynamesh. And ultimately, I'm just gonna inflate these all together so they're just like basically all touching. But first, gotta get the right kind of, at least a better shape than this. Some people's toes go straight across, like not one's longer than the other. It's kind of crazy looking, but my middle toe is super long. It's like as long as a finger. I'm sure you wanted to know that. Okay, so let's do an inflate here and just inflate the toes out just a little. And then again, like our fingers, we want to square out the tips of those. And we are looking good at the moment. Ah, nice. Very nice. Okay, now let's fix this little, let's get like no volume there. What happens with your CADs is they kind of like shoot out the sides because the mask doesn't have anywhere to go, so it just kind of pushes out the side like that. Once we get this guy like actually on the dinosaur and in pose, we'll always have to do our modifications there. So just be ready for that, and we'll do an inflate actually. I love inflate. It always does some fun things. Okay, so the legs are looking a lot better. And I think in the next video, I think this is looking pretty good for now. Let's do this. I think I'm going to just turn off. So what this is going to do, if you turn off this little button or turn on this button right here, it's going to actually move all the visible subtools, even if they're not in the same active subtool. So I'll show you as an example. You can just move this arrow. If I undid that and just turn on the one, it would just move the body and the teeth and everything would stay in the same place. This can hurt you, so you got to be careful. Make sure that you're aware of where things are going. So like, for example, I just moved the dinosaur because I turned the dinosaur on, so I'm going to turn that back off and just kind of get that guy up top. Let's at least kind of get him in a similar area to where he's going to be. So, awesome. Okay, so let's turn everything back on. Everything's looking cool. He could probably be a smidge larger, so we'll do that too with our transform tool. We have that going. In the early episodes, the T-Rex is pretty young, and so it's quite small, almost like just a little bit larger than a raptor. And I really dug that. So, and I want him to be a little more prominent too. So we might just kind of fake that to make him just a tiny bit bigger than you would anticipate a man being on like a T-Rex. So curious to see how his feet fit on the back. I guess they're already kind of fitting. We'll take a little bit of modification. Anyway, this looks awesome. Looks like he's doing some kind of weird chant over a dinosaur that he's worshiping, but we'll continue to crank on things. In the next video, I'll make, the props for our caveman. We'll make his hair, we'll make his loincloth, we'll make the spear, and then we'll continue to do refinements in our symmetrical poses. And then from there, we'll run into like Z-remeshing, and then we'll start actually posing the characters together. So thanks again for joining me. If you like what you saw, please consider liking, and let me know what things that I'm not covering very well, or what things that I can teach better, or things that you want to learn about in the comments below. And be sure to ring the bell so you get notifications, and we'll see you in the next video.